Order in this court.
Everybody,
Hi, Vicky.
and welcome.
Thank
I
you.
was going to introduce myself. My name is Vicky Iozia, and I'm proud to be the first president of the League of Women Voters. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. Please mute or turn off your cell phones, because you know what we do if your cell phone goes off in the middle of the speaking.
Taking it away.
Everybody stops and we stare at you.
In that case, I'm gonna make sure mine goes on.
Ah,
This meeting is going to be recorded, and I'll put it on YouTube. I'll put the link in the newsletter. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with everything and substance to all. And we'll have a moment of silence before you sit down. Thank you. I would like to introduce our board members who are here. Linda Abels, our membership chair. Yes. Yes. If you've ever been part of an organization, you know that a lot of work goes on behind the scenes. We have some really hard workers on this board. I love working with this board. We have Maxine Connor,
yeah.
our environmental guru. We have Dr. BJ Ezell. She's suffering from very bad shyness. We have Jan Hall.
Yeah.
And the other people aren't here, so I don't have to say their names. Each of you should have gotten one of these reminders, and it tells you what's coming up. It tells you how to get in contact with us. We have some brochures over there that you can help yourself to. How many of you get our newsletter? Yes. How many of you read the newsletter?
It's great.
Yes, it is great, isn't it? I don't say that because I'm the editor. I say that because we get such good articles. A little something for everybody. Our next meeting, as a matter of fact, our next two meetings are going to be. No, our next meeting, our July meeting, is going to be at the Citrus Springs Community Center. We're going to have the commissioners speak. Or two meetings after that, we'll be back here. The August will be about the judicial system, and Attorney Denise Diamond Lynn is going to speak. And our September meeting features the candidates for the House of Representatives, State Senator, and we're going to talk about the amendments. I've been in the League of Women Voters since 2013, but I really didn't get active until the last few years. But I always made sure I would get to the amendments meeting so I would know how to vote on them, because you know how they write them.
Oh, yeah.
See what spins around. The Florida League has just developed a PowerPoint, which is going to have some excellent information. So come to the September, but come to the July and August too.
You mean you don't take the summer off?
No, we do not take summer off, particularly in an election year. What would we do with all this heat anyhow? Yeah. I'm happy to get our meeting going today. I usually like to start exactly on time, but we have more people coming, so if any other people come in, just ignore them. Our guest speaker today is Jim Gouvellis. He is the executive director of the the executive editor of the Citrus County Chronicle. He got his first job in journalism in 1981. So he has a vast amount of experience upon which to draw. To quote Jim briefly, I was taught that a community newspaper's role was to inform the public, tell its stories, and try to make the community a little better every day. And when his boss, publisher Trina Murphy, welcomed him as the editor, she said his passion for local news and decades of news experience served our community well. He's going to speak about the role of journalism in democracy as it pertains to government and elections. We want to thank Jim for coming to speak to us about this important topic. Jim Gouvellis.
Fourscore and 7 years ago. That's a wrong speech. But I will remind you that the Gettysburg Address was only 272 words. And the other speaker at the Gettysburg ceremony spoke for more than 2 hours. And his speech to be remembered today. So I'm not much of a public speaker. I've got about 870 words to share with you today. But I hope it helps you understand how media becomes.
Jim, can
Can you speak to the mic?
Yes.
Okay, that proves you're a rookie.
No, I'm going to sing the speaker.
That's still actually.
And I'm
But I hope it helps you understand how the media has become what it is today and how the Chronicle feels about its role in democracy and elections. Then we can have some questions and answers and have a conversation. I think that would be helpful. First, let's not sugarcoat it. Things are pretty bad right now. This may be the most divided our nation has been in our lifetimes. Most national elections are decided on the margins. Probably more chilling is we seem to have lost the ability to talk to one another. Our political discourse is filled with name calling, conspiracy theories, and hate. There seems to be no middle ground anymore. Is it hopeless? Maybe not, at least at the local level. Our country's history is full of division. For most of our history, our newspapers have helped fuel the flame of division in America. During the Revolutionary War, there were newspapers whose sole reason to exist were to have revolution. There were some that wanted the United States to stay part of Great Britain. After the war, Thomas Jefferson had Republican newspapers that he controlled. Alexander Hamilton had Federalist newspapers that he controlled. During the Civil War, there were abolitionist newspapers, there were secessionist newspapers. For most of our history, newspapers were owned and operated by men, with particular points of view, pushing their own agendas or those of the party. Things changed in the early part of the 20th century. There was a significant movement toward more professional, objective journalism. This was driven in part by educational advancements like journalism schools. Market forces also changed things with the invention of modern advertising that allowed the newspaper business to have the funds to seek a wider audience. With a wider audience came the need to have a broader appeal to its readers. Technological innovations and regulatory changes also played a part. The Federal Communications Commission implemented the Fairness Doctrine in 1949. It required broadcasters to present controversial issues in an equitable and balanced manner. Even though this was aimed at broadcast media, it influenced journalistic standards across the news business, including newspapers. Newspapers began acting less partisan and placing more importance on just reporting the facts and offering opinions from a wide variety of viewpoints. Most of us got our news at the time from local newspapers and one of the 3 news channels that were available on television. You could make an argument that we were more united and less partisan during those times. Then the technological revolution happened. Cable TV allowed for more channels and programming. There's an old Bruce Springsteen song that 67 channels and nothing's on. And so in 1987, under the Reagan administration, the FCC repealed the Fairness Doctrine under the auspices of that the market would force fairness, competition would force fairness, but it didn't. This allowed broadcasters to become much like the old partisan newspapers. One of the first broadcast news outlets to take advantage of the repeal of the Fairness Doctrine was Fox News. Their marketing plan is pretty simple. Take a point of view and push it constantly. They railed against the mainstream media and as if it was a bad thing. Soon you had a news channel to fit your own political leanings. If you were conservative, you watched Fox News. If you were liberal, you watched MSNBC. Talk radio soon became the partisan newspapers of the old era. Remember Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, Rachel Maddow. So traditional newspapers, TV, and radio were seen as the enemy. One party was good, one party was bad. There was nothing in between. Then the internet happened. The advent of Facebook, Twitter, and other platforms made things even worse. Algorithms started feeding us news and information we wanted to see and filtering out anything that we didn't like. I've often thought the world would be a better place. It forced us to see things that we didn't agree with. So users received a steady stream of things they already agreed. This reinforced the feeling that my side's right and any other viewpoint is wrong. So what about today? Newspapers today still believe in telling both sides of the story and allowing different viewpoints, no matter what anybody tells you. You really, really do. Newspapers are less partisan than TV, radio, and many news websites. Local newspapers still have the ability to affect positive change in their communities. Even with fewer print subscribers, local newspapers and their digital platforms are a common denominator in communities. Highlighting local issues gives communities like ours a sense of unity, a sense that we all live in the same place and face similar challenges. Presenting factual information and all types of viewpoints is good for democracy. It's also important in local issues. By the time we all vote in August and November, voters will have heard from people in their newspaper, from the candidates firsthand with their own columns in their own words. They will have also heard from citizens through letters to the editor about what they think is good or bad about the candidates. And they will read the opinions of the paper's editorial, which comes straight from God to us.
Okay.
Read about what, and by the way, about the editorial board, we don't think we're any smarter than anybody else. We just often have more access to the candidates than most of our readers do. So then we just give our opinions. We very rarely say bad things about any candidate. We think it takes a lot of gumption to run for office. So this is good for politics, I think. But there are still a lot of challenges. Being balanced and fair in the newspaper business is not easy these days. Almost every day I get a complaint from a reader who disagrees with something we publish, often an opinion from somebody else. Many readers are so conditioned by the partisan leanings of their TV or digital platforms that they read that they just get mad. They often believe that if we publish something they don't agree with, then we must be on the side of that opinion. As most of everybody in this room knows, that's just not true. It just feels like a lot of people no longer want to hear both sides of the story. So, but we're not going to stop. We'll continue to offer a wide range of opinion because we honestly believe that when the electorate is presented with both sides of the story, they're better prepared to participate in the democratic process. That's good for Citrus County, and that is, I believe, good for America. That's my story. Ask me questions.
Well, I don't have a question. Sandy Counts for the school board. I've been there since 2016. And I want to thank the Chronicle publicly and thank you for all the column inches that you have given our kids in our schools and told good stories about what we're doing for the kids.
Well, that's awesome.
If
you haven't seen it, we have a whole page every week during the school year. Where kids write their own stories. So
Yeah.
You were first for the student writers.
Yes, we're going to try this year. We're developing a video website, sort of a local TV/video site. We're going to see if we can get kids to participate in that too, because they're probably already doing that in classes and things like that. So that would be awesome. So
Thank you.
You have another columnist who's a graduate from the campus. Is it
Courtney.
She writes so well.
She's
Every time I read her column, I just
She's
get
so
yes, I feel full of hope.
I have a confession to make. She doesn't live in Citrus County, she was in Georgia. She grew up, right? So I came here and I know everything. So, so somebody who lives in Georgia would write about Tom, and I'm so glad because she's just so good.
She
Yeah.
sure is.
So, other questions? Yes, sir.
My name's Craig McCurry. I'm from Fernando. I have a question about Sound Off. Sound Off prints, there's a lot of comments that are printed, anonymous comments. political candidates and elected officials. And sometimes it really crosses the line of fairness and some of the comments can be substantiated. So what process does the Chronicle use to determine which ones get printed?
Well, tell my boss not to watch this. I hate that. It's so ingrained in the DNA of the newspaper, right?
Mhm.
It wasn't my first priority to do anything about it. You were absolutely positive. Um, my son was 20 years old. I was sounding off to him about sound off. And he said, "You can sign their names." I'm thinking, maybe that's not a bad idea because it troubles me that letter to the editor. One of the first things I did was take it off the editorial page because it's how can you hold your head up and say you have to sign your name to a letter to the editor on this page, which you can be anonymous. So that was one thing I could do in a way. I would like just being honest with you. I would like to change it, and before I check out of this place, maybe I would. So I actually agree with you. So about what goes into it, we don't let people say personal things about people. Public figures are more fair game, but we don't let them talk trash about businesses like it's Ollie's and cashiers meeting. Because the businesses don't really get a chance to fight back and stuff like that. So it's not much of an answer, but I'm just being smooth from it. It could be better, and hopefully I can make it better because I really don't like it. So
Some of the sound offs are getting too long, and sometimes when I read them, I think this should be a letter to the editor with their name on it, not in sound off. So is there any plan to address that?
no. But what you could do is you could start writing
We can,
letters
well,
about,
I'm not, I
about
think
how much you hate sound off.
it's starting here.
A lot of papers did it. I worked at papers that did it for a while. They used to call it let 'em have it. I worked with. But in my opinion, it has high readership. The 20-year-old, I just told you about my son's. That brought him back to reading newspaper. I can't believe it. 20-year-old reads a newspaper. But the internet has sort of become. You can go on the internet and say those things. You know what I mean? So I'm working on it. That's the best answer I can give. So yes.
Sound off does have a really good place in the county because it gives people a chance to vent. And if you don't have a place to vent, and get it out there, you're gonna take it out on people. And I think it really does, having a thing, because it doesn't say today. It makes you feel good to at least see it in print as opposed to the letters to the editor. Those are a little bit more, you've got to put your name to it.
So Jerry Mulligan used to call it Citrus County's safety valve. It didn't allow people to sound off and everything, but it could be better. Yes, ma'am.
My question was concerning, what are you doing about extending distribution? But since we've gone to this mail system, essentially we took a lot of newspaper out of a lot of houses. Especially for people who were older or whatever. Every day you got your newspaper and you had a newspaper around the house, or maybe your neighbor would give it to your neighbor because you had good coupons or something like that. But nowadays, there's only 5 days a week that you get a newspaper. The news is going to get older and whatever. And I think there's a whole bunch of people who are not tech savvy that are going to sit there and go on their computer every day to read everything.
Well, you don't have to go on your computer every day. It's available via the mail 5 days a week.
Right.
It doesn't. Another little secret. There's very little breaking news. Any newspaper. So most of the stuff you got is just as pertinent. You got it at 4 in the afternoon, or 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what to tell you. It's a business decision. Newspapers all across the country are doing that. We're not the first newspaper to do that. Ocala does it that way. Leesburg does it that way. The Tampa Bay Times was print twice a week.
Yeah.
So it's and also we didn't do it just to save money. We couldn't get carriers. Just like the schools are having bus driver issues, most of our papers were getting delivered in the afternoon anyway, because carriers were having to run 2 or 3 routes, and, some person on the third route got their paper at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, part of it was a labor issue, and this took some of that out. So,
About 2 days ago, I skimmed an article that had something to do with the AP grant program in an attempt to neutralize the flavor of news. I didn't read the whole thing, but it was like maybe Tuesday's paper, if you remember it.
or something.
No, it was like on the bottom part of page this side, and it had something to do with now maybe we'll get more balanced news. And they only skimmed it. Who read it? It's about 2-3
I
days
think
ago.
somebody's opinion.
But
Well,
there was something.
there was about an AP grant program that was going to deliver news in a new way.
Locally,
Local.
more local.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a letter to the editor, but
No,
anyhow,
there's an article about what AP is doing in order to capture more.
Probably, and
Yeah.
my best guess on that, probably there are lots of towns. You guys should consider, I've only been here almost 2 years. There are places just like the speaker, and United News does it.
Yeah.
So it's probably a grant for
That's
people
what
that
it is.
blog,
like internet.
and see who's AP. That's
You mean you don't read it cover to cover? What's the matter with you?
You know what concerns me? I hear too many older people in this county that I know say, when my subscription runs out, I'm not renewing because it's either too expensive or they're afraid they're gonna have to read online. And it concerns me that it will affect the newspaper and then we won't have it at the paper.
We have one of the lowest subscription rates of any paper in Florida.
So what can we do to prevent that from happening?
Educate them. I mean,
Well,
who has a bottle? Seriously, send her a bottle of water, hold up the bottle of water. Our newspaper costs less than that. It's cheap. So do you think it has value? The things that we put in the paper every day is worth a bottle of water, right? So that's the kind of thing we have to tell them.
and that's what I tell them when they say that to me, that, well, if you need help learning how to go online, actually online is better. There's things you see online that you can't get in the
Pages
paper.
and React pages that aren't.
Yeah.
efficient.
Yeah.
We hold, if we're doing this library, we have whole sessions, I think it's every month or every quarter, where we invite people in and show you that it's electronic. That's pretty good attendance. So,
John Murphy's behind a good segment of that. Yeah.
and we have whatever our circulation, 10,000 or whatever. You have no idea how many people we hear, not just the e-edition, but our website. Our website has tremendous reach. It just baffles me. It's very strong a John Murphy's about here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
What are your thoughts on AI, like invention and how it might affect local community paper?
Here's how I'll tell you, we just developed a corporation, actually, we've just developed a policy of using AI, because it's coming, but good or not, it's on here. So we sat down with editors and publishers, and we came up with a policy, said none of our byline stories, the stories that are in the front page, will be written by artificial intelligence. However, as a tool, let's say the garden club sends us a press release. Everybody has various levels of writing skills. So it's a labor device for me to say, especially with a smaller news staff, to copy and paste that into artificial intelligence and tell it, make this into a small news story. And it takes care of the spelling and the grammar and all that stuff. I feel safe doing that as opposed to making a story about the county commission. So, there are publications who did that. Sports Illustrated caught up in a big scandal, a controversy, where they were having AI write their sports stories. Many of the sports stories, they weren't hiding it. They were telling people they were doing it. They were just feeding some stats in, and out came the story. They stopped doing it. So yeah, and we have some checks and balances, and that even if you use AI for those things I just described, the human being still has to look at it afterwards. So it doesn't go right in the paper. But it's a tool, it's coming, and
I just wanted to thank you for being there. You've been very good for me. Getting facts out during the year and also more importantly during the legislative session. And, this, the community, I want to say, please support this newspaper because the last thing we need is a newspaper. We can't have democracy if the facts can't get out there and it's to all kinds of things. We can sort through it. And back when we had our solar co-ops, we ran 2 years. The board of county commissioners was very supportive of us. I think the first one was in 2017 and the second one was a couple of years ago. And Mike Bates was so wonderful putting information in there. We had information sessions to be published there so that we could publicize what we're doing. Offer it to, the members of the co-op showed their own installer. So we got a really good deal because the installer got a whole bunch of people. There were 20 people in China that were rent solar with the co-op. Very good for them price wise. So the clean energy does. So want to say thank you for that. And the league does take positions after careful study. They get the facts out, but they will take positions out there. They don't take positions on parties or communities.
Correct. We're going to lean on you for the amendments. I can tell you that right now. Throughout my career, wherever I've been, the union of voters in the state of the local have been very good about presenting the pros and cons of the amendment. So we're going to and back at you with the thank you because the league has helped us. We have it's a shameless plug. We have a candidates forum July 8th, at the fairgrounds, and the league was gracious enough to help us formulate the questions for those. So thank you. And they were really good questions. We gave us so many questions we gave them all. But thank you.
What time is that candidate forum?
Door is open. It's
Wow.
but
Can
that's-
drag queens come in again? Remember last time, the drag queen that got booed?
as a member,
As a audience person, yeah, they got in there.
anybody can come.
Oh, good.
It's like a-
So, you are not as the Chronicle going to do endorsements, but you're going to do
It's the
recommendations.
same thing. We just think the term words mean things.
Okay.
And they joke about it coming from God to us to you. The editorial board, like I said, isn't any smarter than any of you. It's just we talk to these people, we weigh the pros and cons of their candidacies, and this is who we recommend.
And when will that happen?
Week after next, I think.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, something very soon. They haven't been written yet because we haven't interviewed all of it. And you have a judge question on that.
No. Personal. I'm supposed to know what it is, so I was wondering if the Chronicle was, I guess my understanding is they're not gonna do any recommendations on the judicial races.
That's correct. And here's why. We know a lot about the local politics, and I'm not saying we're experts, but we go to the county commission meetings. We study the issues. We feel comfortable saying what our opinions are. When it comes to judges, we don't know squat, and that's just the truth. We don't feel qualified. Actually, we just don't feel qualified. And the other things, judge candidates are hampered by what they can say. The judicial canon of ethics says you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that. So you're going to say, I'm a very nice person, I have 3 kids. So, we don't know how you're. So that's the reason why we just don't feel qualified.
I understand,
And that's why we're having a meeting on it. Just happens to be the August meeting.
and that's why I'm.
But we would publish things that say so and so endorsed so and so. We would publish that kind of information.
So if I send you endorsements that I
Yeah,
received.
absolutely. We're going to write about the races and everything.
Okay,
But for better or worse, that's our decision. Yes, we will.
thank you.
I like sound off. I get a laugh out of it every single time. And it gives me opinions. Sometimes I try to get into other people's heads to see why they feel the way that I do. Sometimes I get a little inkling for that. And I love reading the newspaper on my computer. If you have a regular newspaper, it is what it is, but I can make it big. I tune in. I'm teaching somebody English and we go to the Chronicle whenever we meet and we read one of the articles.
Up until last year, there wasn't one article of clothing didn't have results. So this kind of helps me too. And I do the same thing. I read the paper online first thing in the morning, 5, 6 o'clock, winter. It's available. And then when I get to work, I read it, look at it just for other things, the pictures come out of stuff. Yes.
As a person roasted by sound off over the years, I just can't agree with its attributes. My question centers more on letters to the editor.
Sure.
And if you know, is the Chronicle publishing all letters?
Almost every letter we get. There's
Yeah,
you
well,
will hear people say you don't publish any of the public letters. Yes, we do. We won't publish them. People are way overboard in name calling, or the facts are just so bizarre that aliens are actually
it's good to know.
populating the Inverness City Council or something like that. But very few of them don't get in favor. And I don't care. I personally don't, and I do the letters to the editorial papers, and I don't care less what you say. I think it's good for everybody to listen. Look.
Well, there are very few letters as of now, and that's why I'm asking. I was wondering if some were actually held back for whatever reason, because there's only 2 or 3.
No, I never have a lack of letters, but I stopped running them on Sunday and Monday because I believe I got some calls in the beginning. Well, only the online people have read my letter to the editor. My letter in print. Okay, so I did do that, and I've got to spread them out over 5 days. And if you look at the page, usually about 3 fit, something like that. So we're still getting lots of letters. Got a good one about the sheriff's race coming on Saturday. So
To mention, Colin, they don't do letters to the editor anymore. I think people don't
yeah,
understand.
let's talk about that. That's so I talked about viewpoints in the paper. We write editorials. Editorials are the institutional opinion. Okay, we have an editorial board. Trina and myself are the only 2 employees of the editorial. And there's 9, including us. And there are people who are, the former police chief Chris River on there. We have somebody who's in the environment, somebody who's in the military. Who's mostly retired people. We have a retired judge. Trish Thomas is on the editorial. So we have people from all walks of life. How we do that is we scour the newspaper. Somebody makes an agenda. We meet once a week. We say these are the stories that we like for a comment. When he votes on priority 5 is best for us, and then we just somebody say, okay, I'll take that one, take that, and then you discuss them, come to some kind of consensus about them. Most newspapers now that newspapers are consolidating. Gannett, the local paper, stuff like that. They made the decision. We're not going to have any institutional meetings. I can tell you one of the reasons I took this job was because it had an editorial board. That once a week, they still wrote local editorials. I believe, can't prove it, those big companies are doing it in Gannett because they don't want to take anybody off. And so we don't care if you get checked off. We'll still rarely write them in a way that's personal or anything like that, like I said about the candidates, even if we don't recommend, we still go about to say nice things about it. We'll tell people what we think your positive attributes are, but we like this other person better. I think it's a bad thing for communities to not have some kind of voice. Anybody from New York remember when the Dodgers were there? Well, the Dodgers moved out.
Went to Ebbets Field, yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Dodgers moved out in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah.
Brooklyn had a newspaper before they moved out, but they didn't when they it was calm. And I honestly believe, can't prove that either, but if a newspaper, local community had a voice, somebody championing for something in the community, you can affect change. That's what I was talking about, affecting change. So reader editorials, agree with them, don't agree with them, but I'm still glad we have. So
I just wanted to bring in kind of a testimony. And that is when I was looking to move to Citrus County or move to Florida over 20 years ago. One of the things that was very important to me was the local paper. And when I saw that Citrus County had a Chronicle, I was like, yeah, this is where I want to be. So over the years, what I've seen about the Chronicle our community is known as a very caring community. And I really attribute a lot of that to the communication about our local events of all kinds that bring us together. And so I think that's always been very, very important. And also the Chronicle's support of so many local events. And to me personally, it's very important to keep this paper. And so anything that we can do collectively to try and help.
Well, here's what you can do, buy it, read it, and talk.
Fire, I've already subscribed for 2 years, yeah.
Ma'am.
I just want to point out that one of the best gifts you can give someone is a subscription to the Amazon program. We do that to our neighbor who takes care of our staff all the time. Question, because I'm very computer literate, but I cannot read that paper online. I don't know why. I can never get the password to work or something. But is it different content online than it is in print?
So the e-edition is an exact replica of the print edition.
Okay.
And the advantages that has is if you could look at the pages like you look at a printed edition, but when you click on a story pops up and you can just read that story and then unclick it and go read the other story with it. We do add the corporate Paxton Media adds some pages to the back of it, like mostly feature pages, health, automotive, things like that. So there is a bonus attribute to everything that is in tomorrow's paper. The initial, our regular website is online now. So you don't have to wait till tomorrow to read it. If you want to look at a regular, chronicleonline.com, we post those stories mid-afternoon.
And do you have membership drives?
No, I don't know your name.
Should?
It's a good idea. I think they should do like a Black Friday sale too.
I think I can answer her question about you were always having to go to a page to get another way to get onto the paper. When I called halted for vacation last week, I said, how can I get rid of that extra step to be recognized? And all you had to do was in some corner of it, when you sign in, save this. Remember me. There you go. And it will, and you don't have to go to that
And
other source.
bookmark it. So I bookmark it, paper comes up, and I'm already signed in, and I don't have to go through all that.
Yeah.
But I was frustrated too. I said, they know me. I just renewed. But they didn't know, they didn't remember me. They may know me, but they didn't remember me.
Yes, ma'am.
I was concerned when the plan was first brought out by that one new big
Yeah, Paxton Media.
conglomerate, and I looked it up and it tends to be very conservative and pushing that. And then at first, somebody like Ollie North, and I remember him from New York State. And
Yeah.
I thought, oh, okay. We're on the downslide here, but when I do love my paper. I like having that money. I recycle it. I get rid of grass. I save my papers, I put them down on the ground and people use on top, and I don't have to mow grass. And so that's another problem with adding it. It didn't go that way. It started that way. And it's got a
It
service.
started before Paxton Media. They came northbound when Landmark. So let's talk about 2 things. I've been there going on January 2 years. Not one time has anyone from Paxton Media said, run this content, don't run that content. Not a single word. I think people care about the bottom line, and that's a good thing for me. And so, and you can help by buying the papers in the world is profitable and stuff like that. But truly, they interfered not one iota in the content paper. You referred to the Ollie North stuff. When I got here, we had a weird reputation when I got here when it came to the editorial page. There were all these there was Ollie, so it was crazy person. And other national type columnists. And I said, this is just crazy. These are the same talking heads that you see on TV. And it doesn't do anything to educate or inform. It really doesn't. So I made a slow shift to getting rid of all those people. And now I found a source called Inside Sources that has columns by people who are kind of experts in their field or do what they're writing about.
Maybe bright.
Yeah, so that troubled me when I first got here, and I fixed it. I brought back editorial cartoons. They're just fun. They're just so fear not. As far as I can tell, Paxton's not trying to turn us into something. The funniest thing about my job, and this has been the case wherever, um, I've been accused of being a flaming liberal. I've been accused of being a arch conservative. So that tells me we're doing something right. So,
There is a wonderful letter in today's Chronicle by our first vice president, Rosemary Mills, from beautiful.
yeah, I make sure that that's this group, the League of Women Voters, since I've been here in particular, has provided us with some really good content and, thoughtful stuff about various issues. So I would hope you wouldn't stop doing like this.
Have you been able to obtain any more information on car accidents?
Here's what I know. They know, and I know who the young lady was. It has been ruled an accident. And she wasn't at fault. So I don't see any reason to put some 20-year-old kid's name in the paper so that she can get harassed by the rest of the world. If I thought differently, do differently, I would have a different.
I wasn't referring to that though.
Well, I'm going to assume you asked this question.
One time you spoke and you said, people complain because they see accidents
Oh, okay.
around the county. And
Okay.
they wondered why they were never.
Well, here's why. It appears, for the most part, the sheriff's office doesn't work very many traffic accidents. No, I'm serious. Most of the traffic accidents, they appear at the traffic accidents, to direct traffic and stuff like that. But the investigating agency for most of the traffic accidents in Citrus County is the Florida Highway Patrol. And if I think the sheriff's office is bad about releasing information, the FHP's need to release. You have to file freedom of information request. That's to Tallahassee. They have 6 months to comply. Or weeks. I'm not sure, 6 months. Could be 6 months. So it's just hard. So kind of, by the time I get the information, it's old. The best we can do is if people will tell us if they see something, we ask questions about it and stuff like that. So
You had a phone number.
yeah, we do. I haven't publicized that very well, so it should be better. Just
Dr. BJ and I live in the city of Fresno. A few weeks ago, my husband was leaving the house and he noted, we live off 200. He noted that there were some sheriff's cars in an area where we had seen some folks that were homeless. And we needed to do another survey of our property. And when I looked at it, I saw this thing across the other side of the highway. And it was big and white, and I said, well, that thing is big. And I tracked it down, and I'm pretty sure it's a homeless tent, a huge one. And just recently,
it's near the convenience store. There was a homeless camp there for a while.
it's closer to the vehicle. So I immediately went online the next day or whatever to see what had gone, because we never seen that kind of activity. And to our chagrin, there had been a body found, and I found no reference to it. So my next step was to ask my codes, the white couple codes that I know. And of course, very discreetly, she let me know that they were dead by them. Wow, what's going on here? And there was no mention of it.
Yeah, I had a call from a woman, it was a little disjointed conversation with her peers. The 2 people died of drug overdoses in her garage. I guess she were 2 people who were probably just a step away from getting homeless. And I didn't hear about that. We can get any reports about that. This is not a political statement during the election campaign. The sheriff's office isn't very good at releasing mundane, not mundane, but regular news about things like you just
Arrests.
described. Yeah, or arrests or a body found. I don't I'm used to sheriff's office giving you a report either every day or every week and saying, this is what I did this week. And that doesn't seem to be a priority here. I'm puzzled by it.
So you're not going to publish something of that sort of event that the sheriff's department has to deal with, right? You're not gonna put secondhand information in the
Correct.
paper.
That's correct. So,
That's what.
and let's say we did get the information, so we don't want suicides, and then someone did it in front of the fire or something called a collusion. So you don't actually publish suicides and things like a death by natural cause. We get calls all the time. There's 2 deputies in ambulance into my neighbor's house. Somebody was wheeled out in a stretcher. And somebody just died of natural causes. We probably did that.
How about tar and feathering John Labriola? It's my favorite thought. Just my thought. That'd be newsworthy. Does it kill you? I don't know. It hurt.
Just so you know, you have the right to remain silent.
You know, I'll say this about that, Richard. Yeah. He has every right to say whatever he wants, but so do you.
Yep.
So,
You bet.
I didn't want to end on that super morbid note, but I do also want to mention 2 things. One is, I'm so happy that you started mailing the newspapers. I had a carrier, and no matter how many nice little notes I wrote, and no matter how many little gifts I gave at holidays, my paper still landed not on the apron of the roadway, but in the muck and the grass and all that good stuff. By the time I pick it up, I'm maybe taking answers or else. But so I finally had and I wrote them a nice little note and said, "Would you put my newspaper in the mailbox?" And they wrote me the nastiest note back. Whoever you are, if that traffic is so bad out there and blah, 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 blah. And I wrote them back and I said, yes, but the United States Post Office finds their slot every attack. So now I have their ugly little note as my comic relief. And I'm so glad that you're delivering it to me about them and also reading mine. The other thing that I want to thank the Chronicle for is Craig and I are thought care professionals. I don't know who else is in this room. However, I do appreciate the notations and the thank yous and those things that do come through the sound off event, because you never know. I was at an event recently, and a little boy was doing a 3-on-3 tournament, and he really hurt his ankle quite badly. And they kept saying, "Well, who are you?" I said, "I'm a nurse. I can tell you that I'm a registered nurse." And they didn't ask for the name, but the call was quite rude and pensive about my attention to his son. And I finally said to him, "I'm here to help. Your son needs attention. And if anyone else is here that can take my place, please do." And someone actually put that in sound off and thanked me for that. They didn't know my name either, and that's not the time. So sound off does have its good points. I thank you lastly for that attention that you give to healthcare. I was your county's 2022 healthcare hero. And I just encourage all of you to thank your healthcare workers, because it's getting tough out there. Too many patients and not enough staff, and you're leaving the profession. And I thank you for every word of encouragement that you give to.
You know, everything that's a good example and everything we put in the paper isn't all bad news or nasty news. And think about it. If you had a friend and all they did was tell you all their complaints and everything that bad that happened to them today on the street, you'd stop talking to them after a while. So we believe your newspaper should be like your friend. You know, tell us the bad stuff too, but tell us, you know, catch people doing right. You know, that's a good thing.
And don't ever mess with BJ.
Any other questions?
Oh, if you take photos of an event, I understand it's a given that you have to have the names of the folks in it for it to run. True?
Technically, yes.
Okay.
We would like that. But if you can't get them, we still, you know, names and faces in the paper as much as possible. But you're an event that we can't cover. We can't cover everything. We have a much smaller staff than we had last year. It's just the same all over. We are blessed that we do have staff photographers still, which is very rare these days. Most reporters and paper pictures themselves. But so we can't, and every day somebody calls, I'm gonna cover my bar mitzvah. No, we like to put it in the paper, but if you take a picture of the event, we'll put it in the paper, and that's a fair trade, if you ask me. Exactly. Well, thank you.
It's so nice to hear from somebody who tells it like it is and he's got nothing to hide. I could give another round of applause. We'll ask you back again, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Our next meeting is where?
It's after.
That's good. It's pretty good. Yeah, that's where it's going to be. And what's it going to be about?
County first, I better run and gathering.
Board of County Commissioners. Get there early.
Yeah.
There are going to be a lot of seats. It's going to be pretty exciting. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.